You know, when most people think of Ohio, they probably picture a flyover state, right? That patch of green you see from 30,000 feet on your way to somewhere else. But what if I told you they're missing out on one of the most fascinating stories in America? This state has been right at the heart of it all, and we're about to show you exactly why. Okay, let's get into it. So let me start with a question for you. What could eight U.S. presidents, the very invention of the airplane, and some of the most spectacular ancient structures on the entire continent possibly have in common? It's a pretty random list, I know. But the answer, well, it might just surprise you. Yep, the answer is Ohio. A state that, far from being just a place to pass through, has been this incredible, surprising epicenter of American history, world-changing innovation, and even a deep, ancient past that goes back thousands of years. So, here's what we're going to cover. We'll start with why it's way more than a flyover state. Then we'll dig into the land and its ancient legacy. After that, we'll see how it was America's first frontier, understand its role as the nation's political bellwether, and finally, get to know the Buckeye people themselves. So let's start with something I find really cool. Where the state even got its name. Because it's not just a random word. It tells a story about the land and the people who first called it home. The name Ohio actually comes from an Iroquois word, Ohio. It means Great River, and that's a perfect nod to the massive Ohio River that literally carves out the state's entire southern border. For centuries, that river was a superhighway. And of course, you've probably heard its other nickname, the Buckeye State, which comes from the native Buckeye trees you can find there. Okay, let's talk about the land itself, because for a state that gets stereotyped as just being flat farmland, its geography is actually this dramatic story of contrasts, shaped by these immense natural forces thousands of years ago. And what's so wild is how this slide shows you two completely different Ohio's. In the Northwest, you've got these pancake flat plains. That's what was left behind when ancient glaciers basically steamrolled over the land. But then, as you go southeast, the whole landscape just transforms into these rugged, beautiful rolling hills of the Appalachian Plateaus. It's this incredible forested region that the glaciers never even touched. And this incredibly diverse land has a human history that stretches back for millennia. I mean, long before any Europeans set foot here, Ohio was a major center of civilization for some of the most advanced and, frankly, mysterious ancient cultures in all of North America. And listen, we're not talking about simple nomadic groups here. The Adena culture, going all the way back to 1000 BC, built the Great Serpent Mound. It's absolutely incredible. You can still see it today. Then came the Hopewell people, who built these massive, complex earthworks and, get this, ran a trade network that stretched from the Rocky Mountains all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. This place was a true crossroads of the ancient world. Okay, so let's jump forward in time and see how this ancient land becomes a cornerstone of the American story. Because when the United States first started expanding, Ohio wasn't the Midwest. It was the West. It was the nation's first very frontier, and the way it was created set a powerful example for the entire country. So the turning point is this document called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. It was basically the blueprint for how America would grow. And it had this idea inside that for the time was absolutely revolutionary. It banned slavery, right from the very beginning. Ohio became the first state ever brought into the Union under this groundbreaking anti-slavery rule. So Ohio started operating as a state way back on March 1st, 1803. But here's a fantastic piece of trivia for you. Because of a little mistake in Congress, its statehood was never actually made official. It took 150 years, all the way to 1953, for President Eisenhower to finally sign a paper making it official, all the way back to that 1803 date. Hey, better late than never, right? From that really important beginning, Ohio just grew into a state with this huge, outsized influence on the rest of the country, especially when it comes to politics and new ideas. You won't believe some of the things that have come out of Ohio. I want you to just think about this number for a second. 8. That is how many U.S. presidents have come from Ohio. It's earned its nickname, the Mother of Presidents, for sure. And the list is full of people who totally shaped the country. You've got Ulysses S. Grant, the Civil War hero, and William Howard Taft, who was the only person in history to be both president and the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. I mean, that's just an incredible legacy of leadership. And that political influence is still a huge deal today. Ohio is what we call a swing state, or a bellwether. That's because its mix of city, suburban, and rural voters often looks a lot like the rest of the country. You've probably heard the saying, As Ohio goes, so goes the nation. And you know what? It's often been true. So yeah, keep an eye on Ohio during the next election. But Ohio's influence isn't just about politics. This quarter really tells another huge part of the story. Now, the first flight happened in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. We all know that. But the Wright brothers, they were from Dayton, Ohio. It was in their little Dayton bicycle shop that they dreamed up, engineered, and actually built the world's first working airplane. Ohio is the true birthplace of aviation. Talk about a game changer. So, who are the people that make up this incredibly influential state today? Well, Ohio is kind of like a mirror of America's bigger story. It's a mix of deep family roots and a growing, vibrant diversity. Let's take a closer look. If you look at the census data from 2010, you can see the breakdown. The state is predominantly white, but it has a really significant Black community, making up more than 12% of the population. And when you ask people where their families came from, you really see the story of European immigration that shaped the whole Midwest. More than a quarter of Ohioans have German roots, which you can definitely still see in the state's culture, followed by a lot of people with Irish and English heritage. But those big numbers don't tell the whole story. When you zoom in on the cities, you see this incredible diversity. Ohio's major cities are these vibrant hubs with large Black communities, a big Hispanic population adding flavor to places like Cleveland and Toledo, and a really diverse, growing Asian community, especially in Columbus. And you absolutely cannot talk about the people of Ohio without mentioning one of its most unique communities. The state is home to the single largest Amish population in the entire United States. It is a remarkable thing to see their horse-drawn buggies sharing the road with modern cars, and it adds another rich, totally distinct layer to the fabric of modern Ohio. So let's just put that all together. Ohio started out as the 17th state, a pretty wild frontier with only about 45,000 people. Today, even though it's only the 34th largest state in size, it has boomed to become the 7th most populous in the entire country. That is a truly remarkable journey, from a frontier outpost to a national powerhouse. From an ancient crossroads of civilizations to a modern political bellwether, the story of Ohio has again and again mirrored the larger story of America. Which leaves us with one last thought. If Ohio's past has so often reflected the nation's path, then maybe, just maybe, paying attention to where Ohio goes next can tell us something about where we are all headed. So the next time you're on a plane, remember, you're not just flying over a state, you're flying over the heart of it all.